Krista earned her MFA in creative writing with a specialization in poetry from Adelphi University in Garden City, New York, and she received her BA in English Adolescence Education from Marist College in Poughkeepsie. Um, she has taught English language arts at the secondary level, and her experience working with students with special needs. As part of the Teach for the Future program, she has been investigating the role of technology in our day-to-day experiences, including those that take place in the classroom. Beyond her teaching and academic interests, Krista is a lover of the great outdoors, which she describes as an important source of her spirituality. Our other presenter, Jill Randall, is an assistant professor of mathematics. She has taught at SUNY Adirondack for 10 years. Her teaching experiences ranges from developmental math to the calculus sequence. Jill got her MA in mathematics and her BA with a dual major in mathematics and elementary education from SUNY Potsdam. She recently also earned an advanced certificate of study in college teaching from SUNY Potsdam as a result of the Teach for the Future grant. Jill takes student-centered approach to teaching mathematics and was the 2020 recipient of the Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Teaching. In her free time, she enjoys gardening, playing with her dogs, and spending time with her family. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Jill and Krista to begin their presentation. But before that, I would like to inform all of you that this presentation is being recorded. I had forgotten to mention it earlier. It's being recorded and will be placed on the college's YouTube channel. If you do not want to be viewed, please mute your video. Thank you, Jill and Krista, please.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I think most of you have kind of followed our series and have been here for a couple of these, so you've met us before, so we will jump right in. This is really the culmination of our work at this point, being that our first presentation was about creating those instructional videos, which really, for the most part, targeted more of an asynchronous teaching opportunity, and again, was pretty linear. Our second presentation was about using PowerPoint in a new way, in a non-linear way, to kind of be more interactive and kind of be explored at the students' own pace and use it and go in whatever direction they chose to go in. We're now going to look at creating an instructional website, which really goes back to that linear fashion of learning. Really, it has a straight trajectory. We're starting here. This is our goal to get to, and really kind of following a specific trail. So in this project, again, most of all of our presentations have stemmed from specific projects that we had in our coursework. We were given a very specific assignment to create a website that had a certain number of pages with a certain purpose to each page, and then you could expand from there. So some had more, some had less, and so on. But our homepage really was intended to introduce a topic or a unit that the website was going to cover. You would then have a couple of instructional pages followed by some sort of assessment. And then there also had to be a teacher page. So the teacher page may be something that I probably wouldn't put in another website if I designed it, but it really would help anybody that used this website know how it was intended to be used, and included a lot of additional information. So what we're going to do is first we'll start off by sharing with you what we created. Oh, I didn't say this, I'm sorry. I meant to mention that this really lends itself very well to asynchronous instruction again, but could be used in the classroom kind of as a self-led activity where the instructor could circulate around the room while the students worked through the instructional website and completed the tasks within it. So it doesn't have to just be asynchronous. It could be used within the classroom, even in a traditional setting, but it is more targeted, kind of gone back and forth between asynchronous, synchronous, and so on, and how you could use them. So this really has a little more flexibility as well. So we are going to first show you what we've created, and then we'll kind of get into the nuts and bolts of how to do that. So I'm going to hand it off to Krista and let her share her website first.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Welcome. I think I need screen sharing privileges.
Okay,
If
so you don't have that? I thought you did. Okay.
So if you go to share screen, I think there should be advanced options like all participants and allow everyone to share. That's at least what I do with my students. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm just going to show you, start with my Google site. And it's pretty interesting because Jill and I took very different approaches with the assignment, just being that, you know, she teaches math, I teach English. So hopefully that will highlight some of the versatility offered by Google Sites. So let's see.
Do you have it now?
I do.
Okay.
Magic. Thank you. Okay. Great. Can everyone see my screen okay? Okay. And just so you all know, at the end of today's workshop, we will be sending out a handout. So if you want to go back to our sample sites and get more information there, that will be made available to you. So this is my Google site. As Jill mentioned, the idea was to create something pretty much self-contained, something relatively comprehensive, right? So when I approached it, I thought that rhetoric, which I spent a lot of time on in my English 101 class, would be appropriate just because it is rather complicated, multidimensional. There's a lot of different concepts involved in it. So I thought the scaffolding offered by this linear approach to teaching through the Google site would be appropriate. So I went with like a larger banner. So there's just this arrow here to drop you down farther along in the page. I decided, because it was sort of designed with that asynchronous modality in mind, to try to make it a little bit more human. So I did put my face here so that they know, like, I'm your instructor, and if you need any help, I'm available at these times, and here's how you can reach me. So if it is designed for something online, I do think that is an important feature to include. Here on this homepage, I'm just kind of introducing them to the art of persuasion in general, and the power of words. So telling them what they're going to be learning about. And then as they scroll farther down, I do have the learning objectives or goals. So it was important to us to make it clear to our students, you know, if they're going to be going through this lesson in a linear fashion, they have to understand where they're heading, right? And why they're doing what they're doing, what the goals are. And so I included the objectives here. I preserved like those Bloom's taxonomy verbs, just so they know what they should actively be doing throughout this unit. But I did try to make it a bit more conversational. And one way I did that was by including these sort of parenthetical notes underneath each objective. That just provides some level of encouragement, reassurance. So you will be ready to tackle this when you get there. You know, trust me, you will get the hang of it, stuff like that. So you can kind of be a little bit creative about how you put your objectives on there. Jill's going to be talking to you about buttons, more buttons. We're back to the buttons. But you can sort of include some personality, some of your voice in the buttons to help your students navigate your website. So here I just have, without further ado, let us begin. So it prompts them to click it. And you'll notice that it's forcing them to move along in a linear fashion across the navigation bar. So now they're at the preparation stage. So here, this page is devoted to just making sure they understand how to navigate this website and how they're going to be using it to learn about rhetoric and eventually write a paper. So here are just the instructions. And I do just include 3 simple reminders for my students, reminding them to ditch the digital and make sure they have pen and paper ready. So prompting them to be actively engaged and not just passively clicking through the different prompts. I did also embed a link to Cornell Notes. So this is something you can play with, and Jill will talk to you more about this. but just giving them a suggestion of a note-taking strategy or tool. Here, I'm just mentioning, the importance of their Wi-Fi connection. So because it is online and there are some Google Forms, collaborative Google Docs, and things that they're going to be submitting through the website, I just want to make sure that their internet connection is stable. And then lastly, just following directions and just reinforcing how important it will be that because it is asynchronous, they have to make sure they're reading all of the steps and following instructions. So then they'll click this button and head to the activities page. And here's my first tab that actually has a drop-down menu, and I will be explaining to you how to get these organized that way. So on the main activities page, they're introduced to the concept of rhetoric, some basic definitions. And then here's the first time where symbolic images are being used to represent ethos, pathos, and logos. And I decided to carry these symbolic images throughout the rest of the Google site, just to sort of create like a pattern, a visual pattern, and reinforce these key concepts so that they always are making these symbolic associations. So I explain what each of these are. And there are different ways you can create this kind of layout. Here I have like the 3-column approach, which again, we'll talk to you more about in a little bit. And then they're prompted to head to step 1, which they can also access just by going to the drop-down menu. So for step 1, I thought it was important to get my students to reflect on the role of persuasion in their day-to-day experiences, tap into their prior knowledge. So I decided to have them reflect on, what is persuasion, where have you seen it, and how would you define it? So I did embed a collaborative Google Doc where they can sort of treat it like a discussion board. I think if I revisited this, I would modify it a bit and maybe play around with my different options. But I do think that it's important that if you're going to use sort of this like asynchronous linear modality, to incorporate collaborative things as well, like where students can touch base with each other and still communicate with one another. So that was the idea here. So then we head to step 2. And here's where reading comes in. So I thought that one way to make reading more active was to include comprehension checks. So I decided to pair each reading that I assigned with a quick Google form that asked them some brief questions. And I think the embedding of Google Forms is pretty neat just because it can give me a sense of how far along students are as they're progressing through the stages on my website. It allows me to get that formative assessment, quick feedback, so that I can address any misconceptions or confusion, things like that. Because everything's embedded, they can always have the option to pop out of the Google site. If, let's say, they want to download it or print it, they do have that option. Or if they wish to just stay in the Google site itself, they do have the option to just scroll because it's embedded. And the same thing goes for the Google form, which they can just fill in and then submit. So that's a cool way to get live feedback from your students. And here they're doing another reading comprehension check. And I do remind them at the very top, I forgot to mention this, things like slow and steady wins the race. So reminding them that being a fast reader doesn't necessarily mean that you're being a good reader, right? Or a critical thinker. So, I tried to think about things that I would say if I were to be in person with my students, right? Like take your time, annotate it, take notes, etc., and trying to incorporate that throughout. So again, just remembering that human element. So if they head to step 3, again, we're working in a linear fashion. Here, I wanted to kind of really catch their attention and get some kind of reaction out of them with this ASPCA advertisement, just because they are going to have to conduct a rhetorical analysis at the end of this unit. And so I want them to see that, rhetoric takes different shapes, different forms. And here's an example of visual rhetoric paired with text, right? So adding on to the ASPCA theme, I decided to embed a video of an ASPCA commercial, the one with Sarah McLachlan, if any of you have seen it. So their job, like their task, is to do these two things. And the terms here are introduced in the readings that came before it. So again, that scaffolded approach. So now that you know what these things are, show me that you can apply it to this. I think if I could do this again, I would use collapsible text like Jill used in her site, just because I do have like sample findings for them to reference after they've done the activity. And the collapsible text will allow them to like kind of feel less tempted to look ahead and cheat. So that's just something to think about. But here we have like the symbolic images again, ethos, pathos, and logos, but now we're actually applying it to a commercial, as they will need to be doing for the final evaluation. So I gave examples. They head to step 4. Okay, step 4, we're taking a more, looking at rhetoric through a more historical lens. Again, just trying to tap into various students' interests, but also just showing how rhetoric has many, many different applications. So here we have the Armada portrait, Queen Elizabeth I. There's a lot of rhetoric in action here, but it's silent, right? It's purely visual, like the hand on the globe, the ornate garb, and things like that. So I asked them to think back to their history class that maybe they've seen this before, and submit another Google form, just telling me, you know, where do you see the rhetorical appeals at work in this image, right? Again, to just see if they're able to get to the higher order thinking skills. Then they'll spend some time with Queen Elizabeth's speech to the troops at Tilbury. And I included a presentation here, which also includes like a video of like a reenactment of like what the speech was like when it was being delivered. So they'll be analyzing this in the same way that they went about analyzing the ASPCA commercial. So again, consistency, pattern building, stuff like that. And this will show them that rhetoric is like a timeless tool. We went back to the 16th century and it was still at work. Okay, and then step 5, I created a review section. And here I created a video where I go through a presentation that just reinforces core concepts, key ideas, and paired with the video that I created is the presentation that I will be going through in the video. And I created skeleton notes, so like there are blanks that need to be filled in. So again, this is just designed to foster engagement. If you're writing it, the chances of you remembering it increase, I'm pretty sure. I think that's scientific. So they can, again, like pop out the window and print it if they would like to do that, or they can also save it to their computer and type in the answers, which would defeat the purpose of writing, but you get the point. And then if they're prepared, they're prompted to head to the final evaluation. And nothing is stopping them from looking back, right? If they need to review certain things or revisit things. But once they're ready, the evaluation tab or page explains that they will be doing a rhetorical analysis on a commercial of their choice, just kind of like how we did with the ASPCA commercial. The grading criteria is outlined. I also embedded a link to a helpful resource regarding writing a rhetorical analysis. And then the rubric, which clearly outlines how they're going to be graded on this assignment. And then when they're all done, they're prompted to submit to Google Classroom. Again, when I revisit this over the summer, I'm looking forward to playing with things a bit. I think I would even just like embed a direct link here, right? So that they can click Google Classroom and it takes them maybe to the assignment on my Google Classroom page so that they can get to it more seamlessly. And that signifies that they will be done. Once you've written that essay, you've completed all of the assignments. And then as Jill mentioned, we included a teacher page just based on the assignment that we were given over the summer. And here it's sort of you know, it's designed for fellow educators to be looking at and kind of open up some pedagogical dialogue, right? So you can invite other educators, like, what do you think of my website? Do you have any suggestions, feedback, input? And we included our actual lesson plans that correspond to the design of the website, right? So really you need the lesson plan first in order to know where you're heading with your website. So I included it as both a Word document and a PDF just for accessibility. So again, fellow instructors can take a look and just, you know, communicate with me. And then there's like the search tab here in case students need to find something that they maybe overlooked initially. So that is my Google site. Now Jill's going to show you hers, which again is centered on math.
Krista, before I get there, there was a question about how you give feedback to your students on their Google form responses.
So I don't give feedback through the Google form responses themselves. It's more like I could go to my Google Classroom and post an announcement or email a student. I don't know if there's a way to use a Google form where you can actually respond to people's responses. If any of you know that, I haven't tried that. But I know like the Google form will collect everybody's responses and give you like a summary of everything. So I kind of saw it as a way to address confusion or misconceptions more as like on a class level. Because I would assume that there's going to be patterns of that confusion and misconceptions. Does that make sense? I don't.
Yes, thank you. I was just curious if there was a way through that form to immediately shoot back a, well, not quite, or whatever to one person, or if you had to make a big announcement.
I can look more into that. Whenever I've used Google Forms, I haven't seen that kind of option. But I think there's various ways to just be in communication.
Some people are saying their short answer questions allow you to give individual private feedback.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and you'll see in mine in just a moment, I have more, it's more of a quiz and it's more interactive, just submitting the answers. So I would provide them their grades in Blackboard and then provide feedback on an individual basis. And then there was also a question about Google Classroom as an alternative to Blackboard. And yeah, it's just another platform to interact with your students.
Yep. And if any of you are curious what it looks like, I'm happy, like if you want to send me an email, I can show you what my Google Classroom looks like if you're curious. But it is kind of nice because the compatibility is there. I think like if you stay in the Google Suite, things just work kind of a little nicely. So.
All right. So I will show you my site, and it again, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. My goodness. Okay. As we had said, Krista and I take very different approaches, which was very fun because we could bounce ideas off of each other, but still be very different. Teaching math is definitely different than teaching English. So Krista's website was much more of a large unit, where mine is more of a lesson within a unit or a subset of an overall unit on system of equations. So this was an introductory lesson on what is a system of equations and how we solve them graphically, and kind of how many solutions can there be, so on and so forth. And if I was to continue with others, there would be another website afterwards, kind of a connection. So I used, and one of the questions was that where are there layouts and setups for Google Sites, which Krista will be showing, and there are. And this was very much, for the most part, the layout, the top bar and so on of mine was what I chose it from one of the options instead of changing all of that. But I led with a real world problem of why we may want to look at a system of equations. And even our most commonly used real world problems in some of our algebra don't always relate to everybody, but I use candy, hoping that at least we'd all appreciate the idea of purchasing candy. So to kind of develop the need for the topic, and then just defined for the students what a linear system of equations is. and gave some solutions, being sure to indicate the difference between when we just have good old X and Y, which is what students love, and then when we throw in other variables like A and B or S and T and M and N. Students tend to get a little nervous when we leave X and Y. So it was just an introductory page to what is a system of linear equations. And then we talk about how we actually solve them graphically, which really just entails graphing the two lines and finding their point of intersection. So I gave an example where the lines were already graphed and then identified the solution. I personally, in my website, my personal touch came from the fact that I embedded my own personal videos that I had created. So I will be honest and tell you that the videos that were created for this were not done prior. I can't remember the order in which we did it, but they were not the quality of what I produced after we learned how to do effective videos. So the videos that were included in here were very short, just kind of showing examples. But if I click the link, and I won't bore you with a long video, but you will get taken to a video and where it's my voice, and I don't know if you can hear it. No, I am here today to talk about solving a system of equations. It's me and my voice and so on. So it took the students to that specific video with some examples, so they could actually go and watch the video. So that was kind of my personal touch to it, was that I did put my voice in there and included some instruction other than just reading the pages from the website. So there was also a second video. The next thing that I did that was really fun, and it was something that I had no idea that I could do, was I actually embedded the Desmos graphing calculator into my website. So the Desmos graphing calculator is a free calculator that's available to anybody online, but I was actually able to just put the piece that I needed from that website into my website so the students could use it. So if you actually just go to desmos.com, it'll take you to this general page and you can eventually get to the graphing calculator. I was able to just embed the actual graphing calculator here for the students to use. So I listed the steps as to how they could do this using the graphing calculator. And I can show you now that if I actually just type in y equals 4 minus 2x and hit enter, it graphs the first line. And then the students can, oops, I forgot my y equals, sorry. The graphing calculator that we use that is not online does not, what am I doing here? Require you to use the y equals, it's already there. But so then it graphs the two lines and then the students can identify, oh, the point of intersection is the point. We go left 1, up 6, negative 1, 6, and that's my solution. So it gave the students the ability to actually find the solution using a calculator. I also require them to actually do it by hand on graph paper, but this kind of gave them the opportunity to do it here as well, which I always encourage students to check using the calculator. You'll see on the bottom, we have the button. So one of the things when we submitted for feedback, one of the things that I had adjusted from my feedback was to actually have a go back page or button at the top. You we have, I think they're called breadcrumbs or something like that. You can see at the top you can actually go to the specific pages, but I also included a go back so that if a student wanted to go back and be like, oh wait, what was the system of equations again, they could just hit the go back button rather than going forward. So now that we know how to solve a system of equations graphically by plotting both, graphing both lines and finding the point of intersection, let's talk about how many possible solutions there are. So we go to the next page. And what we will see is that we can have one solution when we have two lines that just cross in one place. That's the most common situation. We could have no solutions, and that's when the lines are parallel and never intersect. And then we could have infinitely many solutions when the two lines that you're graphing actually are the same line. So although they may not look the same, when you actually graph them, they are the same line. That gives us our infinitely many solutions. So then I went to a practice page. On this page, I've given a number of examples, and I will show you at the end. I actually had a set of guided notes for the students to use and a place where they could actually graph these on graph paper and find their solution. I this time did an external link to the Desmos graphing calculator. So if they wanted to actually have the calculator open, they could click that button and it would take them to the graphing calculator on a separate page to check their answer. But I also said, or had here, this is what Krista was talking about, the collapsible text. If I click on this, it gives them the solution. So once they found their solution, they could click here to check to make sure that they had it correct. And then they can move on to the next example. This one was a different type of example where it actually just gave them the graph. They just needed to identify the solution. And then the last one was actually to work through the original problem that I had started with, which was the application problem. And I did embed the video of that solution. So then using a Google form, I have a quiz embedded. So this would go to my my Google Drive, and I would be able to see the results for each student. And they could submit their answers. So there were some that were multiple choice and some where they just needed to input their actual solution. And that would count as part of their assessment for this unit. I had an evaluation page which actually explained there was more than just the quiz. There was also a journal to be completed. And one of the things that we really worked on throughout all of our courses, we're using rubrics for assessment. So I actually have a rubric attached here for completing the activities through this website. So not just the quiz, but the written solutions, the journal, and then just the quiz, the grade that they received. And then the teacher page. So the teacher page included the handout. So as I said, there was just a guided kind of a guided notes handout that the students would have used. So I would have provided the students with that handout as they progressed through the website. There's also my lesson plan here, a link to that. I also included some additional resources, so some other videos that the students could use. And then just the target audience and the Common Core standards. So even though this really was targeted for my class in my introductory algebra, which is developmental math here at the college, it also could be used in high school because some of that content does overlap. Okay, so now that we've given you kind of a preview showing you what we created with the information we were given, we're going to go back to actually show you the how-to. So Krista's going to lead you through the first part, and then I will lead you through the second part. So I will hand it back off to Krista.
Great, thank you. Yes, so at this point, if any of you would like to actually open up your Google Drive account, this could be something that you follow along with if you want to try it out on your end. I'm going to share my screen and walk you through how to create a new Google site, how to pick a theme, and how to make pages. And then Jill will talk about how to actually insert specific elements on each page. So you can see my screen all right? Everybody good? Yeah. Okay. So if I'm in my Google Drive account, you're just going to go to New, the plus sign. I have to go to More on my end, and then Google Sites. One thing I will say is that you're going to want to be mindful of the account that you're using when you're creating your Google site, just because depending on the different features and elements that you incorporate, you don't want to have any accessibility issues, right? Due to accounts not linking up or privacy settings, things like that. So just something to keep in mind. When I hit Google Sites, it's going to automatically create a new Google site slowly. And my recommendation would be to just title it first. So I'll just call this, oh boy, sorry, my computer's not cooperating. Okay, I'll call this sample site. And when you title it up here, it should automatically title it on the actual website itself. So you see that there. The next thing I'm going to talk about is themes. So I'm actually going to start on the right-hand side here, and we're going to work our way towards the left. So if you go to themes, this is, there's all of these preset themes. There's not a ton to pick from, but you can definitely customize along the way. So I'm going to show you how to do that. The idea of choosing a theme is to create some visual and design consistency and just kind of make everything look a bit inviting. So I'm just going to pick Aristotle just because I was talking about rhetoric. You'll notice that when you choose a theme, you can pick a color, and you'll notice in this case, this particular theme has that little line. So maybe I like that under my page titles, and that is what's changing color depending on what I click. You can also customize the color. So if you wanted like a bright pink, right, you could make that yourself. I'm just going to stick to the green just for our purposes. The next thing you'll notice is that there's this thing called font style. And the way I interpret this, the way Google has it set up, is that these are font styles that Google thinks pair nicely with the theme that you selected. So you have some options here. But what I will show you is that there's still like another way that you can customize the font style later on. So that's it. That's how you pick a font style based on the themes. But if I head here and I actually start playing around on my page itself, you'll notice that like with any other text box, you get like the toolbar here. So you're not limited to just, you know, these font styles. If I really wanted to change it to, let's say like Georgia, I could. If I didn't want it bold, if I didn't want it italicized, I could play around with that. So maybe I want it bold and I don't want it italicized. I'm just going to call this the welcome page just so we have something on here. You can also modify the size. I like the 45 the way it looks. So I'm going to leave it alone. And again, you can change the color. So let's say I want to kind of echo that greenish color. So I can do that there. So what I will say though is that if you do start modifying the font, you know, color, size, style, etc., here in the text box using this toolbar, it's not necessarily going to carry over to all of the new pages that you create. So just keep that in mind, that you might have to do some manual editing down the line. Okay, next thing is this sort of banner image. So you'll notice that the automated one here, it's cool, but maybe it doesn't speak to what I'm talking about, right? Maybe my website has to do with trees. So I'm going to use that just as an example. So over here, you have two things that you can play around with. I'm just going to mention this quickly just because it doesn't take very long, but the header type is kind of explaining how this banner image is going to appear at the top of your website. So you probably noticed that in my website, there's the cover, right? Like each title page kind of occupies the entire screen, and then you click the down arrow and then it introduces you to the content. So you can control how large or small, sorry, I just got to keep moving the zoom controls, or small the banner appears. You don't even need a banner, right? So you have the option to remove it entirely if you don't feel it's necessary. I'm just going to keep the standard banner, again, just for our purposes. That also depends on your image, right? So if you choose an image that would look better, taking up more space, then you might go with a cover or a large banner. So the other way you can customize is by changing the banner image in the background here. So when you go to change image, you can upload an image from your computer that you saved. What I will say about that is that if you are finding your own images on Google Images, I feel like I'm saying images quite a bit. We just have to keep in mind like copyright, right? Like fair use, things like that. So you're going to want to go to settings, advanced search. And there are two things you're going to want to take a look at. For image size, when I researched this, the suggested pixel size or dimensions for a banner on a website was this, 1024 by 768. So I'm just going to pick that. That will ensure that the images that come up are large and big enough for the banner, and will therefore probably look have more clarity, right? And then down here, usage rights. This is what I was talking about as far as like copyright is concerned. So depending how you're using it, Creative Commons licenses may be sufficient, but then there's also commercial and other licenses there. So again, that's one option if you're finding your own images and pulling them off the computer, off the internet and saving them to your computer. If you go to select image, you'll notice that there are gallery options. So these are just kind of like automated ones, so you can see what it looks like. Do you see these little sparkles kind of shimmering in the corner? I don't know if you missed it, but these were kind of like sparkling, right? This is the readability adjustment. So what Google automatically does this, right? So I noticed that it often makes the images that you select darker, right? So that your text stands out more. You can always click remove readability and you'll notice that it brightens up again. But it really depends on the look you're going for. But it will automatically do that. So just if you see that happening, that's all it is. Again, if I go back to change image, select image, I don't need to use the gallery images here. I can search something by a URL. I can search actually in Google directly through here. I can go to my albums, my Google Drive. If you do the search through here, you'll notice that Google states results shown are labeled for commercial reuse with modification. So that kind of alleviates some of the stress involved with that process. So let's say I like this image, can select it, and it looks pretty good. There are my twinkling little stars down here, adjusting for readability. If I want to remove it, it just brightens a little bit, but I'll leave it as is. Okay. So I think that's pretty much it for picking a theme and customizing the banner. So now I'm going to move on to pages. Does anyone have questions though before I do that? Amy, I think I see a hand.
I do, and I'm lost to my computer somewhere. Hold on.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm jumping back and forth between my Google page and how did you change the color of your text?
Okay, so you see how when I hover over the text here, the blue box appears?
Yeah.
So it's like a text box. You can think of it that way. So if I click in it, the toolbar automatically appears. So all I did was I highlighted it. And
oh, the letter. Oh, I don't have that A. Oh, maybe because I minimized my window. There we go.
Maybe.
Now I have it.
Now? Okay.
Yeah, I minimized so I could fit Zoom next to you.
Okay.
And so I couldn't see it.
Taking up too much space. Yeah.
Yeah. Where's the Google search that you did for the image, that last thing you just did?
Sure. So if you go to change image,
yep.
Select image.
Yep.
You can hit search.
Oh, search. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
It automatically takes you through Google with the commercial reuse with modification.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. And if ever you want to just reset it entirely, you're like, I don't know what I just did, or if you deleted your text box and you're like, I don't know how to get it back, you can always just hit reset. Okay. Any other questions about the themes, like playing around with themes and what have you? No? Okay. So now I'm going to talk about page building. And the thing with pages, or you kind of have to know where you're going with your website, right? Before you can just start making random pages. So it was helpful that Jill and I started with a lesson plan, right? We mapped out what we wanted our students to accomplish, how we wanted them to accomplish those tasks, and how they would be evaluated, so we could create a clear procedure, a step-by-step process. So definitely keep that linear trajectory in mind. I will say that the pages are pretty easy to move around and modify. So if you do make little hiccups along the way or need to make changes, it's not the end of the world. But definitely have a strong vision of what you want your site to look like. So the way you add pages is you go to pages, where I clicked here, and you just hit this plus sign, okay? And when you hit that plus sign, you can title your page, and whatever you put here is what's going to appear in the navigation bar up top. Advanced settings has to do with creating a custom pathway, which I'm not going to get into, but if you are interested, there's going to be more information included on the handout. I don't think it's really necessary to get involved with that, but So the page title, I will hit done. And you'll notice that since I created another page, do you see how my home page is appearing and now page 1? Because now there's multiple pages on my website. Home is how Google Sites automatically labels your home page, your first page. But just know that you can customize that. So if I just double click on home over here, you'll notice that it gives me the option to change it. So maybe I want to call it welcome instead. Maybe I don't like it called home. But that little house icon indicates that this is going to be the first page appearing in your sequence on the navigation bar. You'll notice that if I just click and drag page 1, you'll see that I can move it up, and now page 1 will become my home page because it's the first page again in the navigation bar. I don't want it there, so I'm just going to keep it as my welcome page being my home page, and then page 1 coming second. But that's how you reorder pages. So I'm just going to add another page just to show you again. So if I have page 1, page 2, you'll notice that these are coming in out of order. I want them to be linear in sequence. So I'm just going to, again, click and drag, and I can move them around. And if at any point you need to edit anything, just know you can double click it and edit it that way. You'll notice that as you're kind of hovering over your pages in this toolbar over here, there are these 3 dots. And if you hit them, they just give you some more options to play around with. So let's say you created a page and you're like, oh, this would be great as my home page instead of my welcome page, right? You can just hit make home page, and it's just like a little quick way to move it up to the top of your pages. Duplicate page. Let's say you want to make an exact copy of a page that you already created. That would be that option. So if I did that here, it will automatically call it copy of page number 1. I'll leave that alone, but you can modify it as you see fit. And this is just helpful, right? Like if you, let's say, have 2 different activities in your Google site, but they're really similar, right? You might want to just copy the page and then delete some of the info in the text boxes and substitute things. Another cool feature here is adding a sub page. So you probably noticed that on my website for the activities tab up here, I had a little drop down menu with all of the steps. So I didn't want all my steps to just like be taking up the entire space up top. So to create that little drop down menu, all you're going to do is decide where do you want that drop down menu, on which tab. So let's say on page 2 is where I want those sub pages to appear. You'll select the 3 dots and hit add a sub page. So I'm just going to call this sub page number 1. And you'll notice that it's sort of indented, showing that it is falling under page 2. And when I did that, if I go up here, I can just confirm that it put it where I wanted it. Now I have a little drop down menu under page 2, sub page number 1, and my users can access it there. You can add sub pages, right? Like if I wanted to get really crazy, you could keep going like that, right? I wouldn't recommend creating sub pages just because I think it gets a little bit confusing, and we do want to think about how our students are navigating our website. But in case you're curious, depending on what you're teaching, it may be appropriate. And if you just explain to your students how this is going to look on their end, then it shouldn't be an issue. I have my drop down menu. Here's my first sub page, and then you'll notice there's another drop down menu here, indicating that there's a sub page. Okay, so it can get as complicated as you need it to get. But that's pretty much it. And again, you can move things. Let's say I have a sub page and I'm like, you know what, I actually want it to be its own page. You can just pull it out or put it back in. And I think that's pretty much it for making the pages. So does anyone have questions about anything that I just explained before Jill explains how to actually start adding really cool stuff onto the pages? Okay. All right. So Jill, you can take it away.
Okay, so I'm going to just show you how to add some of these features that we had highlighted in our work. The first thing that I would just emphasize, and I know Krista mentioned it, is it's really important to plan ahead. Have a plan of what you're going to put in, and have those materials created ahead of time. So my videos were created ahead of time, or my Google form was created ahead of time. And I had it all saved in my Google Drive. As Krista mentioned, having everything in one place takes care of compatibility issues ahead of time, and really makes it very convenient to adding to your slides, because there's more than one way that you can just add to your pages very easily. So that was probably the hardest part for me, was planning ahead and thinking about what I was going to use and what was the purpose of each piece. How would I really develop the content, and what tools would I need there for the students to be able to use. So that really takes more time than, once you get comfortable with Google Sites, the actual process of putting it together. I was really nervous to use this. I thought it was going to be much harder than it is. Just know that playing around with it, you can make mistakes and undo it really easily. You can move things very quickly and easily. So don't be afraid to like break it. I always tell people, like my students, that I'm trying to get them to play around in Blackboard and check things out. I'm like, you can click at stuff, you're not going to break anything. It's the same idea here. You're really not going to break anything. So I'm going to just start with a very, very basic, I just kind of have something like Krista did with a sample homepage. And I'm going to work through just showing you how to add to your basic pages. So there's a question about, do you have to have a Google email address to access Google Sites? You have to have a Google account. So I will be honest, and I'd reached out to Cindy and some of the tech people to double check on this, and we're still not 100% sure, but one of the things that was brought up prior to currently, I think it's kind of been fixed, but for me this summer, I use my own personal Google email. It was a new personal email that I did personally or purposefully for this assignment, because I wanted it to have public access. Our college emails do not necessarily have public access. You can share within our community, but the public access gets a little tricky. So I use my own, but you do need to create a Google account to be able to create a Google site. All right, so.
It's also like people, so you said you can, I understand SUNY Adirondack might be a different issue, but you said that if you have a Google site, you can make it publicly available. But I guess what I'm not clear on is, can anyone access the Google site who doesn't have a Gmail account? Or do you really have to have Gmail to access these things?
Oh,
because
no,
of the folders.
You don't have to, if you have the link, you're good, you can access it.
Okay. Got it.
I think the only thing we had mentioned earlier was that if you start like embedding like collaborative documents or a Google form, there might be specific settings
Okay.
like that you just have to be mindful of that might create accessibility issues. But actually just accessing the general website itself, like anyone should be able to get onto it. It's just a matter of, can they interact with everything that you embedded?
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so as I had mentioned, I had created an actual folder within my Google Drive with all of the pieces that I wanted to put in. The first thing, and I will tell you, I in the outline, in the handout that we have, I kind of put them in order, and I'm probably not going to follow that order, and I'm just going to go through things and show you how they work. I think the first thing that I will show you is just how to use the buttons, how to get the buttons in so you can go from page to page. Typically, when you add content, on the page, it does it in the order that you've added it, but again, we can adjust that. So to insert a button, all you see on the right hand side where Krista showed you the pages and the themes, where you'll see the insert list. If you just scroll down, you will see the option for a button right here. So if I click that, it automatically prompts me to name the button. So and I lost it, sorry. I'm just going to say, let's check out page 2 or page 1, okay, because I'm on the home page. So I want this, I'm on the home page. I want this button to take me from home page to page 1. it automatically offers you the pages that you've already created. So as long as you've created all of your pages ahead of time, you're going to have that option in your drop-down menu. So I'm just going to say, okay, I'm going to have that link me to page 1 and I'm good to go. And I insert it. Now, it automatically creates this button. Now you can change this around. Oh, that just changes that, but okay. If I want to come in here and like move it and change its size, okay. So I wanted this to be on the right-hand side because I wanted some consistency. One of the things that we were really talked about, we talked about a lot in our coursework was consistency and the visual effects and so on. So if I was going to the next page, I wanted my button on the right-hand side. So I just moved it and put it over there. Now let's say I also wanted to have the button to go back. So, oh, no, I don't want back yet. I'm sorry. So this will automatically now take me to the next page. So if I go to sample page 1 and I want to have a button on this page to take me back, I can just say, go back, let's say, and I can have that go back to my home and it's going to put the button there. Now, I like the fact that it's on the left-hand side because I'm going back. If I wanted to add the button to go, let's go to pay, or let's check out. Okay, I can now have that go to page 2 and I can insert it. Now, I believe I can click and drag it and it will bring it back up to that same line so that the buttons are next to each other, going to appear at the bottom. And then if I just want to be consistent and have it go all the way over, I can do that. And I can kind of adjust the size and play around with just the appearance. But you can, even though initially when you create the 2 buttons, it puts them separately, you can click and drag it and put it up to the top. Or on that same line so that you have your buttons. And then all right, so I only have 3 pages on this one. If I just want a back button on this page, I can just say go back and I can have it go back to the previous page, which was sample page 1. Okay, and I can insert my button. Okay, so that really is all it takes to create your buttons to go back and forth between the pages. In all reality, it's not necessary because you can use these buttons at the top, but it is nice after the students have worked through the material to be able to go on to the next page. So kind of, it gives them just another option as they're navigating through. Okay. So now that we know how to do the buttons, we can talk about some basic things like adding text and images. So you can add text anywhere just by inserting a text box. Okay. Once you've inserted that text box, you have all of the options that you would have had to, when you're doing any of your other work. You can, this is the normal text based upon the theme. I can choose to change the size. So you'll notice the difference between a heading and practice problems and definitions and so on. So maybe I want to make this a title. I want to change, I could change the font or I could keep it the same. Oops, I didn't mean to go that far. So I can choose other fonts. I can then, okay, I want to have this bold. And maybe I'll just say main topic. I'm just, throwing something on there. Okay. That's all there is to it. Now I can also decide that I want to center this. So instead of having it to the left, I can center it. You have all the options that you would normally have. Let's say in the end, I decide I don't want to have that. If you come to this kind of section, you can always delete an entire section. It's very easy to delete a section and add a new section. Each section is kind of created as you insert things. Okay. You also have the options of these different layouts. So you could go ahead and let's say under this, I'm going to do, I have 3 different subtopics. I'm going to choose this layout, which has 3 different setups already. So it depends on how creative you want to be. If you want to use something that's already kind of set up for you and you don't want to have to adjust it and try to make it match and so on, you can choose these layouts. So now when you go ahead to try to edit this layout, the top part is an image. So you can go ahead and upload an image from your computer. You can select an image. You can go from your drive. You can also search. Now from my drive, I can just do this really quickly. And the only picture that I have here right now is my dog. So we're just going to use my dog today a couple of times. But anyways, you can put this picture here, just select it. It automatically goes in. And then I can click under, and it already is set up to have font of one size and then a subtopic. So I'm going to say this is subtopic, or a subtext, sorry, topic 1, and then we can add whatever we want underneath. This is Pluto. I don't know, that's his name. It was the only picture that I had in my drive without going and searching. So I was like, it's okay, we'll use the dog. There's no copyrights there. And you can do that for each of these and kind of insert it from here. So if you use a layout, it is already set up very nicely to kind of organize and use your headings and subheadings and so on. If you don't want to use a layout, you can also just create your own. So if I had just wanted to just insert an image to begin with, and I didn't want it to be set up this way in this specific layout, and I just wanted to do an image, again, you can upload or you can select. So if I just go to select again, or I can upload, Krista did a really good job of showing you how you can search, but I can just go here and I can just put his picture down below. Now, when it does it, it always puts everything to the left. So you can then adjust it. So I can move, I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller. You can click and drag, and it has these kind of grid lines to kind of help you center it. Let's see if I put it over here, I want to come to this point. Oh, he's getting really big, I'm sorry. So I can say, okay, I'm going to drag that, and then I'm going to drag this over so that it's symmetric. And then I've centered it. See, the nice piece is they really have made this really simple to edit. And they kind of set you up with the ability to center your photos, to adjust them, and so on. So text and images are really, really nice things, easy to use right away. You also, even if you didn't click on images, I could have just gone to my drive, okay, and chose the picture, and it would insert it again. So even if you didn't choose to go to images, you could go to your drive and just insert a picture as well. Okay. So there are some other nice tools that you can use, and I'm just and you can keep adding. Let's say that I decided I wanted to change the order. As I had mentioned, you can click, if you just click this little, it's 10 little buttons here. You click here, you can just pull this and drag it and reorder it. Oops, I'm going a little too far. And it uses the blue line to kind of tell you where it's going to fall. And now I want my button to be at the bottom, so I'm just going to scroll and pull it all the way to the bottom, and it moves. Okay, so it really is, even if you get it out of order when you're putting it together, you want to change it, you can adjust it. So if I go to sample page 2 and I want to embed some materials, okay, the first thing I wanted to show you was how you could embed a link. So that was back up here. So embed, so when I wanted to actually physically embed that, the Desmos calculator, that means it's actually putting it inside. It's not going to link you externally. You have two options with links. You can embed them right in your page or do an external link. So if I do embed, I'm going to go ahead and type in, I know what my thing was, desmos.com/graphing. There are some, so one of the things when I was playing around with this, preparing for today, I was going to embed something from the SUNY Adirondack website. It won't let you because we don't have the permission. There are websites that restrict the ability to embed materials, but something like this graphing calculator works very nicely. Now you can see that it gave me two options. I can embed the whole website, which is what I want, or I can just do this preview. So it gives you the options of what you can embed. I'm going to embed this. And then it actually puts that right within your page. All right, so now I can use the functionality of that graphing calculator within my website. You can also embed videos. You could do that by having the link and doing it that way, or if it's a YouTube video, Google loves YouTube. You can just click here and go to YouTube, and I could say systems of equations graphically. And it's going to give me a bunch of videos. Now I would have wanted to preview them and so on, but let's say I previewed ahead of time and I want to show this. I can click on it and it automatically embeds that video right here within my page. So I had created my own videos that were linked externally, but you can also, if you have a video that's on YouTube, you can embed it right into the website. I'm just looking, I see that, oh, I don't know where it went. It looked like there was a question, but I clicked, I don't know where it went on my computer.
No, Amy's just saying that is nice.
Oh, okay. All right. No, I guess I'm used to it when I'm teaching in class and that blinks orange at me. I always stop. So I won't stop. I'll keep going.
Don't stop.
So I know we're running out of time already. Time flies. So this also right here has you set up nicely to import a Google Doc, a slide, sheets, or forms. So like if I wanted to go to Google Forms here, I can click this. Again, it's going to pull up the ones that I have available. So this is actually the quiz that I had created for this. I have it all in the one spot. And that will also then embed that entire Google form right into my page. So the nice part of it is that everything that you need is right here. And if you put something in, you don't like it, you can just remove it. I did want to show you how to link externally. So if I had wanted to just link to the web, to this graphing calculator externally. So let's say, ooh, I don't want that taking up that much space on my page. I just deleted it. I'm going to go ahead and what I'll do is I can create a text box or a picture, anything, but I'm just going to say link to Desmos. Okay, automatically you see the option to insert link. So if I just highlight the words and I'll just highlight Desmos, if I now click that button, I can now link it and type in the graphing calculator. And now that, instead of being a link that's embedded into my website, now that is an external link that I can click on. It will take me out of the website, but is still available for my use. Okay. I'm trying to think what else. I think I talked about all of the main things that I wanted to talk about actually inserting. Again, there are some other things that you can, oh, I didn't talk about the collapsible text. So that was something that Krista had mentioned and I used. The collapsible text is really cool because you just click on this and it sets up, the top part is what is going to be like above. So I had typed in here, check your answer here or something like that. And then you actually just put the solution here. So when you enter that, like that's all they're going to see, but when they click on it, it expands to show the solution. So that was just one option of a way for me to give my students feedback within the practice time without it having to be a quiz or something like that. They knew right away what the answer was. That primarily goes through most of that. Are there any questions before I talk about publishing and previewing?
We do have one. Bonnie wrote, have you tried posting the form in locked mode, or do you keep it all unlocked because it is only a formative assessment? Bonnie, can you clarify what you mean by locked mode?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, it took me a minute to unmute. Locked mode just means that they can only look at that one tab at a time. So in theory, they couldn't cheat. But I mean, if they have multiple devices, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I guess I hadn't thought about that. I have left it open, especially because they could use the graphing calculator online to practice and so on. So I'm not sure how that would work here being embedded within the website. It's something to investigate.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. So the nice thing that's available is you can preview your website ahead of time to have an idea what it's going to look like and check its functionality. Make sure that all your links are working, that your assessment works and so on, because you don't want to publish something and put it out there without it being functioning. So if you look up here on this top bar, of course, there's the publish. We'll get to that in a minute. But this button right here says preview. If I do that, it's going to take me to a preview of my page. And this is a mess. I'm not going to joke. I'm not even going to joke around about it because I've just been inserting things. But I can check and make sure. The go back button actually took me home. That's good. Okay. There's my pictures. It's where I wanted them to be. Let's check out page 1. Okay, it takes me there. Oh, did my solution actually pop up when I wanted it to? Yes. Is my video going to play? And hopefully it does. And oh yes, it's going to, of course, with an ad first, but we know how that goes. Can I actually put something in, so on and so forth. So just come into this and actually test everything first. The other really nice thing is this shows you what it will look like both in a large screen, okay, on a tablet, okay, so I could see what my website is going to look like on a tablet, and then even on a phone. Okay, so you can view it to know if my students are going to view this from their phones, what will come up, what will it look like. And you can see that right now we're having a little issue with the buttons. So, oh no, it's not the button. Okay. Let's just see, will it still take me? It will still take me to the next page, and you can check it out in all 3. Now, if you're primarily going to use this as a tool in the classroom, you're going to focus probably on the main screen or the large screen, but it is nice to see if there are any issues. Okay, so you can always preview ahead of time. Now, in order for you to be able to share this with your audience, you have to publish it. Okay, so you'll actually come up here and choose publish, and you have to name it. So it's automatically going to be HTTP sites google.com view, and then you can name it. Now I'm just going to say this is Randall sample, and we'll just leave it like that. And it's going to tell me, oh, so somebody else has already used Randall sample, so we'll call it 1. All right, Randall sample 1 is going to work. So you've named your site. You can create it if you had a specific topic. I use systems of equations and so on. And then I can publish it. And once you've published it, you're able to now share it. So you can come here and share with others. And you can either, it's working, add people to share it, or just use the link. And you can go ahead and you can publish the site to public, which is what is selected here, or you can restrict it. If you're going to use this in a classroom or distribute it, you want it to be public, and you're just going to push done. And then when you come here, right at the top, again, you have that link, you can publish that link site, and you can just click on it and then copy and paste it to wherever you want to share it. The other nice thing to mention is if you do publish it and you find an issue afterwards, it's not the end of the world. You can still come back to your sites page and edit it and republish it and fix something. So let's say that you use this once and then you're not happy, like it didn't go well. Something you did with it, something didn't flow well, your students didn't love it. You can go back and edit it without having to recreate it, republish it, and use it again. All right, so questions. I know we talked a lot at you. We were trying to share the general idea, give you some examples. Are there specific questions that you have for us at this point?
And right now, I'm just going to be putting in the chat the handout that we created that kind of just outlines some of the things we discussed. So just keep an eye out for that.
And we also, I see you did the PDF. You're going to send the link too, because I'm not.
I will.
Okay,
Yep.
I wasn't sure if the links would work to our sites would work in the PDF.
Okay. I think they will, but I will put a
Okay.
link, to.
Okay, perfect.
And if either of those don't work, just let me know. Taylor, do you have a question?
Yeah, what do your students think about the Google Classroom interface? Do they like it?
I use Google Classroom, and I've gotten like positive feedback. I think a lot of students find Blackboard like very overwhelming at times. And just, I mean, if you use a lot of the Google Suite apps, it's a very clean look. So I think my students have appreciated that.
I still use Blackboard, but I think if you're using a lot from Google, it makes it much easier.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for, oh, was there a question?
Oh, no, never mind. It's
Oh,
just
good. The
Bonnie
link works.
confirming.
Thank you, thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate that. Well, we really appreciate you joining us, and I know some of you have been here for all 3 presentations, which is great. So we really appreciate it. You know, if at any point you're trying to use one of the tools that we've provided to you, and you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yes, it's been a real pleasure meeting with all of you. And thank you for joining us.
This was great, Krista and Jill. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing it.
Yes, thanks for your help, Jivan.
No problem at all. Okay, guys.
Thanks so much.
Have a great day. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.